I've seen some things.
It's a good answer. Good
Like
answer.
I've communed with Amanita. I've seen her like as this woman wearing like a white frilly dress and like dancing around the fire and like
Mm.
playfully destroying my ego.
Thanks for tuning into Power Perspectives, People, Passion, Purpose. I'm Shannon, and today I am delighted to have the founder of Harmony Acres and all things Amanita, a botanical supplement business specializing in wild crafted mushrooms and herbal medicines. Since 2016, my guest has been foraging wild mushrooms and creating traditional full spectrum extractions using food grade stainless steel equipment and vacuum sealed low temperature methods that preserve the delicate compounds and energetic properties of the plants and fungi he works with. He's an alchemist, a permaculture designer, a Reiki certified practitioner, and teacher of yoga and Qi Gong. His path into plant medicine began with a healthy distrust of authority and punk rock spirit that led him from making potions in sandboxes as a kid to crafting tinctures for friends and family and eventually building a thriving business serving thousands of customers worldwide. His specialty is all things Amanita muscaria, a mushroom that has transformed his own life in 2021 when it helped him release dependencies on cannabis. Since then, he's become a leading voice in the Amanita community, offering consultations, facilitating ceremonies, teaching at mushroom festivals, and creating the Amanita Masterclass on Patreon. We'll have more about that. A comprehensive resource featuring interviews with practitioners, guided meditations, and integration support. He believes that when people work with mushrooms and herbs aligned with their needs, they become more of themselves, more impervious to life's ebbs and flows. His mission is simple: help people find their rhythm and reclaim sovereignty over their health through nature's wisdom. He lives with his beautiful fiancee Maria and their ever-growing family in a log cabin, of course, in the forest in Appalachia. He's an alchemist, a wizard, all things Amanita, and truly powered by mushrooms. Welcome to Power Perspectives, Michael Wilson.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you for that intro and thank you for having me. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you.
Yay, me too, my mushroom wizard friend. Before we get into your background and just about, Amanita muscaria and whatever fungus we want to that comes up, what is your favorite mushroom? I think we can guess, but what's your favorite mushroom? And what's your favorite thing about fungus and why?
Hmm. Yeah, it's like I go back and forth with this. I mean, the obvious answer is Amanita, muscaria, but I actually would say my probably my favorite mushroom is the reishi mushroom. And just to do something different, right? Reishi has been a part of my life since the beginning. It was actually the first medicinal mushroom I ever foraged. And the reason I love it is because not only does it have all of the classic medicinal mushroom properties like immune boosting properties, blood sugar regulation, tumor fighting, cancer fighting properties. It also helps the body reduce cortisol, which is the stress hormone. And it also really feels like kind of this grounding meditative mushroom. Um, so I really appreciate reishi. Favorite thing about mushrooms, I think that the fungus in general has this beautiful quality of kind of replicating very efficient and communal patterns in life. Like if you look at the thread of mycelium, it looks very similar to the way that the internet looks if you would have it stranded out, or the way that our neurons look in our brain. And it probably could be extrapolated to how, celestial bodies, galaxies, and things like that kind of look. So I think that mushrooms and fungus in general, we have this microcosm of like really beautiful, harmonious systems and networks. And whenever we look at that, it kind of informs us on how we can better harmonize with nature, if that makes sense.
Of course it does. I love that answer. That's such a alchemist answer. Beautiful. And like we're fractals, right? Of the larger, the macrocosm, the microcosm, and the mycelial network just continues to highlight that. How much do you think we know about fungus?
I think we know very little. I think we know very little. I think that it's probably the most intelligent species on this planet. And it's just kind of like this bridge between life and death in so many ways. If it wasn't for fungus that, we would have like trees stacked, all the way up to the atmosphere or whatever people say. Um, and nothing would decompose. There would also be a whole lack of synergy in ecosystems because fungus is the bridge, the mycelium is the bridge between a lot of different species. There's species that are entirely dependent on fungus to be intermediaries between other species. Um, and I think that like the intelligence. Are you familiar with the subway
In Tokyo.
experiment?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So like they gave they created a map of the subway system in Tokyo, and they put some like food source on one end, and they put some mycelium on the other end, and they trained the mycelium to find the most efficient way. And then they actually modeled their train systems after that. And the weird thing was they actually took that same culture and did put it in there again, and it did it faster. And so like not only is it like more efficient than we are, but we realized that the mycelium actually has its own memory, which I mean like, that's crazy.
They're
And then like
strategic.
they're very strategic. Yeah, they're smart. They wait and they can withstand the vacuum of I know the spores can withstand the vacuum of space. And then um yeah, it's just like they'll wait for opportunistic moments whenever the soil conditions are right, when the moisture's right, when the heat's right. They can withstand droughts, like even whenever I forage a lot of mushrooms, but whenever it's a bad year, it doesn't mean that the mushrooms are like the mycelium is dead. It's just they're just waiting. And that's so cool. Like they're just waiting underground and I love mushrooms. So there's a lot more I could talk about, but
No,
yeah.
I love that. I feel like it's strange. It's like you're talking about my boyfriend or partner or something, and you're like, oh yeah, this is also what they can do. Do you know what I mean? Like you get so
Yeah.
excited about it. And even just when you're saying that, I didn't think we'd get into like panspermia so quickly, but do you think that this intelligence has come from extraplanetary, extraterrestrial sources?
I have my theory. I had this really weird, trippy theory. We're just gonna get into it. So
Yes,
I
buddy. Let's
know,
go.
so like, I know somebody, actually, I know two people now that, and maybe you know some more. Whenever they take psilocybin, they get possessed by an octopus spirit. Have you
Cool.
ever heard this?
No, but I get so fascinated by octopi and how the two of these beings, or mushrooms in general, fungi and octopi are just like they're not of this dimension. So
Yeah.
I think of them together, which is interesting. But no, I'm all ears. Let
Yeah.
me have it.
So like, yeah, I mean, they they both can survive the vacuum of space, like an octopus egg or whatever. Or like, no, that's so the octopus has DNA that is not like anything else on this planet.
Yeah,
And it's not related to any other species. It's just in its own thing.
yeah.
And then spores can survive the vacuum of space. So my theory was like, and like people are having these like psilocybin experiences where they're like possessed by an octopus, or maybe they see an octopus. And I was like really thinking about this, and then I realized like there's this. I live near Pittsburgh, and there's this organization. It's called Sleeping Octopus uh, Society of Arts and Psychedelics in Pittsburgh, and I'm like, wait, do they know too? Like, so like, I had this theory that like, I mean, and their DNA is freaking crazy. Like, it's like switching on and off, like, it's super epigenetic and everything they're very intelligent. Like I feel weird eating them. And yeah, so yeah, I kind of wonder if, maybe some kind of meteor from another planet, like, crashed into Earth and like maybe some spores and maybe some octopi eggs were brought here. Who knows? But I do wonder about that because I don't really feel like there was a whole lot of growth. I'm not like a, evolutionary historian or anything, but there was a, it wasn't, we weren't able to have a lot of really complex organisms until we started to have mycelium and fungus and things like lichen.
Wow.
Like lichen is a combination of fungus and bacteria. And I think that we kind of co-evolved with fungi, you know. And then you start getting into like the stoned ape theory, and I don't really buy that, but like I want it to be true, So
I think there's more to it than that, but there was so much in there. I just want to also call it out if there's any like super nerds listening that know more about the octopi psychedelic mushroom thing, like come forth and share your knowledge. But also just even with coevolution, like we've had what, five cataclysmic events, and most organisms that paired with fungi co-evolved, like survived because of their symbiotic relationship with the fungus. So like that in itself is worthy of what else is not here that could have been. And maybe there was some crazy octopus that was aligned with the with mushrooms. I don't know, but there's so much
yeah.
in that.
Yeah, I actually love like I will go into like some deeper like old theories like researching like the megalodon and
Oh,
you're familiar with that? Like it's
yeah.
yeah, or that there is also believed to be like a giant squid, which I don't know if octopus and squid are like actually related or not. See, I'm not an evolutionary biologist, but yeah, like massive, like the Kraken kind of size.
Mm.
So yeah, and like yeah, and then there might have been massive mushrooms too, because the Earth used to be a lot warmer. I don't know if the gravity was lighter or what, but like there was definitely like evidence of like very large mushrooms.
Oh, I believe that.
Yeah.
And I want to believe that. I will believe that.
Yeah.
Well, one thing, the thing that's like, it's fascinating talking. I love talking to other mushroom nerds, and not that you're a nerd, you're a super nerd. I'm a nerd also. Wear it proudly. But I would love to get into like, for some people, they're drawn to Amanita. Like it's just like they get lit on fire when it finds them. And I really think that when it finds you, you have this recognition in your heart, in your being, that like I was meant to reunite with this being, and you feel like almost a reunion. I'm definitely sure that happened with you, but can you describe how you and Amanita reconnected?
Yeah, that's great. I really appreciate how you framed that too, because it kind of did feel like that. Whenever I was a teenager, I saw my first Amanita in real life, and it was in my parents' backyard under some pine trees. It was the yellow fly agaric, in Pennsylvania. And I remember looking at it and just being totally enamored with it and also like terrified. And I actually just met this doctor in Alaska, Dr. Markian Babij, and he was like, Amanita is like that cool lady at the party wearing the red dress that everybody wants to talk to, but everybody's afraid to.
Oh,
Um, and I love the doctrine of signatures. So like if anybody's familiar with, well, I'll briefly explain what the doctrine of signatures are. Basically, it's a concept in Chinese medicine where you look at a plant or mushroom in nature, you see what it looks like, how it grows, when it grows, the environment that it grows in, and that will give you some information about how it's going to work with you, how it's going to affect you, right? So a lot of um, a lot of what we would call weeds or invasive plants are very tenacious. They withstand pesticide pressure, they withstand drought pressure, they withstand environmental pressures, and they dominate environments. And a lot of these medicinal plants are, or a lot of these invasive plants are highly medicinal. They're highly tenacious, right? And they have these compounds that actually really help us. Like one of my favorite examples is Japanese knotweed.
Mm.
I take it for Lyme disease because I have Lyme disease, and it doesn't really slow me down because I take knotweed and I live a healthy lifestyle. But knotweed, if you've ever seen it growing, it will completely dominate a environment. It's incredibly invasive. It's a huge pain in the ass, and it's really bad for local species.
Yeah.
But it's full of resveratrol. It's full of antioxidants. It will make you feel so vital that you don't know what to do with your energy. So. Um, that's just one doctrine of signatures. So like Amanita is a red mushroom. A lot of things in nature that are red, red is oftentimes an indication of poison or warning, but it's also like a really bright, really like, hey, look at me kind of mushroom, right? Which is like it's like kind of counterintuitive. But I think that's like part of the draw and the allure of Amanita. Like I will refer to her as she, but a lot of people may find her androgynous or masculine. But for me, it's a feminine spirit, it's a feminine energy. And I feel like she really draws people in right at the right time whenever they need to find her.
Mhm.
So like, I had that initial touch point with Amanita when I was probably like 16, and I was just like, whoa, that's like that psychedelic mushroom that's also poisonous. Like, holy crap, like I'm afraid of that, but I can't stop looking at it. It's so beautiful. And then, I became a mushroom forager like way later in life, in my late 20s. And then I had this synchronistic moment at this party where somebody was like, "Have you ever microdosed Amanita?" And I was like, "Why would I do that? It's a poisonous mushroom." And then that nothing really came of that. But then within the next 2 weeks, two other people had started to talk to me about dosing microdosing or taking like a kind of a larger dose of Amanita. And I was like, okay, there's definitely something here. The universe is trying to tell me something. Like, I need to look into this. And, for me, I had a really negative relationship with cannabis. I used it all the time. I abused it. It abused me back. I, had symptoms of depression and psychosis and paranoia and addictive tendencies with cannabis for 16 years. And after I started to microdose Amanita, I had completely quit cannabis after that 3 months after that initial conversation.
Mm.
So, that's kind of where I started with
Yeah.
Amanita. And like, just one more thing I wanted to add was whenever I really started to work with her, a lot came up for me internally. But one of the things that just going back to your initial question is how did you reconnect with Amanita? Well, I am of Irish and Scottish descent, and I have worked with other plant medicines before, maybe from South America or, Central America. And I really enjoyed them and I got a lot of benefit from them. But whenever I started working with Amanita, I felt like I had connected with my ancestors'
Mm.
medicine, the people, the Scottish Highlands. I know that my father has looked into our lineage, and I know that I'm from a clan where we would go into battle naked, berserking,
Mm.
yelling at our enemies and terrifying them. And that's one theory with Amanita is that, maybe there's berserkers from, the Norwegian or, Viking tradition, but I feel like I felt like I really connected with something that was like deep inside of my bones. So yeah.
Oh, there's so much I want to cover in that. in order to explain how people go berserk, let's talk about the chemical compounds of Amanita muscaria. Why it's initially, if you look it up on Google right now, it will say toxic, do not consume, yada, yada, yada. But why is that? What is ibotenic acid? What is mucimol? And how do they actually benefit us in the right
Yeah.
consumption?
Yeah. So basically, you have two main psychoactive compounds in Amanita. We have ibotenic acid and we have muscimol. Ibotenic acid and muscimol are both present in the raw mushroom. So when you go and pick it, you will have ibotenic acid and muscimol. Whenever you dehydrate it or you expose it to sunlight, you will begin to decarboxylate that ibotenic acid to muscimol. So, chemistry terms, ibotenic acid is a prodrug to muscimol. In the same way that you have to decarboxylate cannabis to make an edible, it's the same process. You remove a carboxyl group and it becomes a different compound. So heat and pH change also affect ibotenic acid and convert it into muscimol. So if you were to um, do a brew, like boiling the amanitas in water and changing the pH, you can do more further decarboxylation. Why would you want to do this? Well, ibotenic acid is not the most pleasant experience in high doses. In small doses, it is interesting. It is energizing. It is speedy. It is euphoric. You can kind of feel like it kind of feels like a mixture of like MDMA and alcohol together. It's
Mm.
really weird. And you could potentially get kind of into a frenzy. Also with muscimol as well, if you take a high enough amount, you can kind of get into a frenzy. And some other side effects that might happen is, convulsions,
Mhm.
seizures, sweating, heart palpitations or heart rate changing, body temperature elevating or getting colder, amnesia, blacking out. These are in like the higher doses.
Mhm.
You can also get into like a really, really deep psychedelic experience, which a lot of people would disagree with. But I personally have tried Amanita in high doses and low doses and raw doses. And I would say that Amanita is 100% a psychedelic. I just think that it's a issue of semantics. Um, but you can have a full-on trip with Amanitas, which I would not recommend. It's not that comfortable of an experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's, I mean, we can say high dose and low dose, but also Amanita is so many variables, right? Like
Yeah.
one cap beside another cap, the smaller one might have so much more potency than the bigger one. And just because it does something in your body, XYZ, it might do something completely different in my body. And it's not pleasant to find out. And I haven't ever had a high dose because I speak to the mushrooms before and I'm just like, is this time? No, like no. So I trust that. And when I did take a little bit more than I probably should have, I experienced that like I was the size of the room and I'm like, okay, well, that's not cool. I don't know what to do with this. And now it's kind of repeating. And then I just was like rocking myself in a corner, like, this too shall pass. This is fine.
Yeah.
And that was just a small amount more than I normally would have as a microdose. So maybe let's get into a little bit about I know you can't recommend dosages of this because of this so many variables, but for you, what would you do to, tailor some experience for yourself to have the best benefits of the medicine?
Yeah. I always am a fan of the phrase the magic's in the microdose. And I should probably like get t-shirts made of that or something. Um but I also do believe there's benefit to higher doses. I can't recommend anything because like I've had pretty hellish experiences, even even not from a medical like liability legal standpoint. Like I just don't recommend people have like a higher dose. Like if you feel the calling, that's on you. But for microdosing, I think that you can get a lot of benefits, and I think that it's there's a couple reasons why it's maybe more beneficial for people. Number one is it's more accessible for people that have mental health disorders. So you're not going to be completely outside of yourself and out of control of yourself. It's going to be like soft sandpaper on your ego rather than like a jackhammer, right? So that's number one. It's more accessible for people that have really busy lifestyles or maybe that have children and they can't take time away to be away for like a day or a weekend. Um, and they don't have time to, really integrate like a very large experience. Um, as far as like, and then there's also just, yeah, I mean, the, the, for dosing, like, I guess you would probably want to start small and go up from there. So, um, I probably say smaller doses than what a lot of people recommend, but I'm also working with the tincture that I make, which is from my experience and from what people have. Well, yeah, there's no label on it, but yeah, I don't have one nearby, but it's a really pretty label. Go check out my website. Yeah, so like whenever you make a tincture or a tea, it's way more bioavailable than if you have dried mushrooms. Also, too, like let's say you bought some mushrooms or you foraged some mushrooms, right? So, typically you're going to be using the caps mostly or only. Those have the most concentrated the alkaloids, ibotenic acid and muscimol. You're going to want to grind those up and homogenize the dose. That way, if you say I have this Amanita mushroom right here,
Yeah.
if I take a bite of this and I maybe weigh it beforehand, that experience is going to be way different than if I take another mushroom and I bite the exact same amount. The reason why is Shannon just mentioned it, earlier is that there can be hot dose or a low dose. You can have a mushroom growing side by side that's 10 times stronger or weaker. It's very different than psilocybin. Um, psilocybin, like there's different, genetics, but for the most part, if you're picking a bunch of psilocybin together, they're all going to be the same potency. Maybe the smaller ones are going to be stronger, the larger ones are going to be weaker, but and that same goes for Amanita actually. They've measured potency on Amanitas and the mushroom in its life cycle is most potent right before or right after the veil breaks. So whenever it's just starting to open up or about to open up. But again, these mushrooms can vary in potency tenfold. So let's say you have an ounce of mushrooms, you'd grind that all up, and then you would, either dose it from there, knowing that you're going to get some ibotenic acid, and maybe you're not concerned about that, which a lot of people do that. It's not abnormal. And the more we educate, more people have informed, um, you know, decision making. They can do whatever they want. A lot of people actually prefer that because it gives them a little bit more energy with the ibotenic acid. And another thing that's interesting is that ibotenic acid actually decarboxylates in our gut because of the pH level. It's really acidic in our gut. So you'll take, if you take a raw mushroom or some dried mushrooms, and you eat them, you'll actually start to decarboxylate them and have more of this muscimol effect. And you have this like roller coaster because, I explained ibotenic acid and but muscimol is a little more sedative. It's more relaxing. It's a GABA agonist, so it's like helping you get into this liminal space of just peace and serenity. That's where you have these like timelessness experiences. If you have like maybe a little bit more than a microdose, maybe a threshold dose. One time I took a bath and I like swear I was in there for like 5 hours, but it was like 20 minutes. And it
Wow.
just was like this beautiful, peaceful state. And so whenever we activate the GABA system, we can suppress or suspend the fight or flight response in our body. And so that's really nice. But whenever you're taking this raw or, dried mushroom, you kind of go through this roller coaster of like energy and then like, whoa, I want to lay down. And then like, I want to like go run a marathon and then, whoa, I want to take a nap. And so if that's what you're into, that's cool. But like,
Uh,
if you do a tea or a tincture and you're decarbing it, then you're gonna have 100% muscimol or closer to that. It's more predictable in that way, especially whenever you're titrating up in like small increments. So, I mean, I would say a good starting microdose would probably be somewhere around a tenth of a gram or a quarter of a gram, depending on how it's prepared, how the mushrooms were dried, how old they were, if they're the first pick of the season or the last pick of the season. There's a lot of variables. So, a tenth of a tenth of a gram or a quarter of a gram is kind of a basic baseline. And then one more point on that is working with the same preparation. So let's say you ground up those mushrooms, or you have a tincture or a tea that you made or you bought. Work with that preparation again and again, and that way you have the same levels of muscimol or ibotenic acid each time, and you know what your dose is, at a tenth of a gram. Okay, two tenths, three tenths, rather than trying like a whole other mushroom or a whole other preparation. You want to, Amanita is full of variables, and the more variables you can remove, the more scientific your approach can be, and the better your results are going to be.
when would you take, if you're trying to use the decarboxylated tincture to help with sleep, what time would you use that at? And could you also go into explaining a little bit about people are kind of confused about psilocybin being very similar to Amanita. It's the emoji, everyone confuses them. No. So, and with psilocybin, we need to take days off in a protocol to reestablish baseline. But with Amanita, builds up in the system. So, could you kind of talk about those two things, like when you want to dose Amanita, if you're using it for sleep, perhaps why a tincture is better for that than just trying to forage yourself and figure it out, and then
Mhm.
why did you don't need to take breaks with Amanita?
Yeah. Well, it's like it's really controversial and within the Amanita community. Like some people say Amanita does not build up in the system. Some people say it has a counter tolerance. Some people say you don't need to take breaks. Some people say you do need to take breaks.
Mm,
Um, and I mean, the best answer I have is go with your intuition. Always,
mhm,
always go with your intuition, and also like go with the season, right? But um, some people aren't connected to their intuition. They may have forgot about it.
mhm,
And a lot of times they are seeking mushrooms or herbs to actually connect with their own inner wisdom. And so maybe they find it along the way, but maybe they need a little framework. So like the Fadiman protocol, or the Stamets protocol, those are all good. 5 days on, 2 days off, or once every other day, or once every 3 days. It's really like I think it's up to you. I mean, how I started was I took half of a tenth of a milligram. Okay. Or it's half of a
my
tenth of
brain's
a
like
gram.
half of
Yeah.
a tenth of
So,
it.
so
Okay.
50 milligrams
Yeah.
or 50 to 60 milligrams, very small dose, very small dose. I was doing that once every 3 days. And that was um, because I'm really sensitive to substances and energies and everything. Like I was having like third eye activations, and like I was recognizing that I had anxiety that I hadn't processed and trauma that I hadn't processed. And it was
Mhm.
kind of like, my shadow was like becoming apparent.
Converging.
And I was like, wow, okay, this is like super powerful medicine and I love it. It was also helping me with sleep. Just a little quick answer. If you want to take it before, sleep, I try to do it an hour before bed, but as long as you're taking it within 30 minutes before bed, a tincture is better or a tea because it's more bioavailable. It's already extracted. Your body doesn't have to process the mushrooms to get the alkaloids. It's
Mhm.
just like boom, ready to go. It goes, you can put it sublingual under your tongue. It goes right into your bloodstream. Let it sit for a little bit and then swallow. Um, those are, if you can do it like an hour or two before bed, that's great because then you're like, it's already hitting you because muscimol takes 2 hours to kick in fully.
Okay.
Whereas psilocybin can take like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, something like that. So, there's a lot there. I just said, but yeah, I forget. What was your question?
Oh, like 20 of them? No, I think
Yeah.
you answered them. And one thing, like a lot of people will that I talk to about Amanita, they're like, I had the craziest dreams of my life. Like, what
Oh, yeah.
did you like? What? What about this? And confronting dreams, things from the past. I had a full-on trauma come up that I knew that I suppressed, but I didn't even know that I suppressed it, if that makes sense. But
Mhm.
can you talk a little bit about how Amanita really like helps you untangle these tangles? And through sleep is one of the best ways to do that.
Yeah.
She
Yeah,
knows.
absolutely. Amanita goes to places very deep inside of a person. It- I would say deeper than a lot of other psychedelics. Even, somebody can have profound transformational experiences with ayahuasca, psilocybin, San Pedro, all these other medicines. But what I hear from people across the board who really work with Amanita is that it goes to the deeper places that are like precognition. We're talking like before we actually remember things that have happened to us, things that are kind of stored and imprinted in our DNA in our body, and even ancestral trauma. So these are things that we may not be able to recall something that happened, but it happened to us, and it actually is informing our life. This is what we call the shadow. The shadow is just that which we are unaware of. It's not a bad thing. It's just programming that, whenever you're 2 years old and your environment is a certain way, your body and your mind and your spirit all say, like, okay, this is the environment that we live in. So this is how we adapt. And
Mhm.
that's not always a good environment. And that's where we start to get these stored traumas. Amanita, a lot of people call it a very somatic mushroom, meaning it's of the body, it's of you, it's of yourself, right? Um, Whereas like with psilocybin, maybe we like connect to like the greater intelligence of the collective consciousness or galactic intelligence or something like that, or extraterrestrials or squids, or octopi. But with Amanita, it's about you. It's about what's going on inside of you. And that's a very confronting thing, but Amanita usually usually does it in a way that's very um gentle. And but it's going to happen. Like, we're going to go there. If you're taking like a larger dose, like you're going to go there and you're going to go there kicking or screaming, or you're going to go there like a leaf on a river floating downstream. It's up to you. And uh, a lot of people would say like Amanita kind of feels like this old Russian grandma who's like, you know, okay, yes, come with me. Yes, I will show you. It's okay. You know, but like also we're gonna do this.
Yeah.
And if you're on the psychedelic journey, if you're on the, psychonaut journey, like you're ready for that kind of experience. The beauty of Amanita is that it works on the GABA receptors. GABA governs a lot of things in the body, hormones, the fight or flight response in the body. And so whenever you stimulate GABA, it does something interesting. Untangling is what you said. I like that. And I think that if you think about trauma as this kind of like this cyclical pattern. All right. So let's say you're 5 years old and um, you got your foot run over by a car. Okay, and it was really traumatic for you. And then, you're 35 years old and, every time you see a car go by, your foot pulls back, right? Because you remembered that time and you realize like, okay, it's not safe. Whenever I see a car, it's not safe. Whenever you have that physiological response of clenching, tightening, maybe pulling back your foot in that instance, um, your body is actually completing a feedback loop. And I think that that is really what trauma is it's like, okay, memory, stimulus, memory, response, and then stimulus, memory, response, and it goes over and over again.
Mm.
It could be like you see a dog and you got bit by a dog when you were younger, and now, every time you see a dog, you clench up. Different things like this, they all are basically um, responses from a stimuli through a memory. And whenever you actually activate the GABA receptors in a major way and you bring awareness to that feedback loop, you can stop that cycle from happening. You can actually have space in between the stimulus and the response. And that's one thing that a lot of people report whenever they start taking Amanita is that there's this spaciousness inside of them. It's like they're taking this mushroom that is helping them meditate in a way. It's bringing more mindfulness and clarity to their life. It's creating more of a gap between stimulus and reaction. And actually, they have not just a reaction, but a response, a conscious action. And so, whenever we stimulate that GABA receptor and we can not perpetuate that feedback loop, we can actually step off that cycle and create a new timeline and become a different person that's not traumatized anymore.
Oh, that's big. That's huge. And a lot of people might be kind of eager to try it. And sometimes people want to get off, like we can get into this. It's really quite important, actually, is how Amanita works similarly to a benzodiazepine, but it's Mother Nature's version without addiction, without the necessity to lean on it. And it doesn't have the effects of needing to use it as a crutch. And what real medicine does is once you heal from it, you no longer need it, but people continue to use Amanita because of the heart-centeredness of it, because of the emotional and logical and mental and physical clarity that it brings. But when using Amanita and you can change, or you don't change the trauma, but you're no longer triggered by it to react in that feedback loop, as you said, that's
Mhm.
life-changing. You are a different person. You have so much more freedom in your body to create when you're not in a fight or flight scenario. So when people first have these experiences and maybe their dream, I've had a friend that's like, no, my dreams were like too crazy. I'm not ready for that yet. No, 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 no. How would you kind of steer them back into like, you can change your life with this. If it's not meant to be in that certain way, like dial it back a bit. What would you say to kind of help them on their way?
To answer that question, I would say that the best way to work with Amanita in the beginning, if you're finding resistance, is to start slow and to work from a very small dose. I'll give an example. So I started working with Amanita. I was taking 50 milligrams or 60 milligrams. I was doing it once every 3 days, and I was having headaches on the
Mm,
days off, and I was having irritability.
mm,
Uh, and and I was like feeling like really like kind of like angry. And I was like, what's going on? And I was having fucking crazy dreams too. Like I was having like Alice in Wonderland like dreams, like circus tents and like, old Russian grandmas and like, like just crazy ass dreams. And after I was journaling and meditating for some time, like trying to figure out like where this like irritability was coming from. Like first I was like, did I not prepare it right? Because I went from, thinking this is like kind of a poisonous mushroom to like, okay, now I'm taking it and like, am I poisoning myself? Am I, you know, uh, just is this like a negative side effect?
Yeah.
Um, you know, and I was like, maybe it's me. Maybe there's something going on in me. And I kind of sat with that feeling and I realized that what that was coming from was repressed rage. And why did I have repressed rage? Well, I followed that thread back, and it was repressed rage about being a people pleaser and like not really like doing or saying what I want to do or sticking up for myself throughout life. And that like it's funny because it's like the journey of figuring out why I had that irritability was actually the Amanita like working on me, right? So like I started this unraveling of this thread and I realized, oh wow, like I I did this thing in life and like I was this way and I don't like that. I don't want to be like that. And that's actually like the reason why I have these behaviors. And then it started to like unravel all these things that I never really had time to look at. And I never took the time to look at.
Mm.
And so, it's kind of like a dirty dishpan you put in the sink with like really hot sudsy water. It starts to like break up all that shit. And
Mhm.
like if you just keep like using the pan over and over again, like you're not gonna break that shit up. And like Amanita is I always call Amanita this spiritual adaptogen. And I like that term because adaptogens are like they work with you with where you're at. Like if you have an adaptogen like reishi mushroom, it's going to help modulate your immune system. So like if you have a high blood cell count, a white blood cell count, maybe it'll help lower it. If you have autoimmune disorders, maybe it'll help regulate that. If you have a really low immune system, it'll help boost your immune cells. And so Amanita, being this spiritual adaptogen, meets you where you're at. And for me, it was like third eye activation. It was grounding as well. A lot of people would associate it with grounding, but everybody's different. And that's the beauty of it, is that it kind of meets you where you're at. So yeah, my whole issue in the beginning resolved itself after like 3 to 4 weeks of doing that really slow, consistent microdose. And then also like just listening to your intuition. If you're not in touch with it, working with mushrooms definitely can help you. But there's a lot of different ways to kind of reconnect with your intuition. And that's going to be your best guide. Yeah.
Great. And there's so much with that. Like, a lot of people, like I was telling you, my dreams are too crazy. I don't want to continue. But as you were describing that, it helped you resolve those issues by having more of it. I was actually picturing like the egg of the fruiting body begin to pierce through the earth and just like come up through the shit just by pushing through, just slowly, just little by little, allowing nature to run its course. And I think that's so important in that, again, that grand macro microcosm. Um, Something like 100 things I want to ask you. When we are working with microdosing and people are just starting on their journeys, a lot of people, again, they don't know like psilocybin from Amanita, and because these are packaged everywhere now, especially in the States, with this like, oh, do psychedelic mushrooms legally, and then they're packed with all this sugar and all this like crazy delta, just garbage, right?
Yeah,
How can
dangerous.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's dangerous and it's making not just a mockery of the actual medicine, but it's going to do more damage of legally keeping this, available for people. So how can you advise someone that wants to get on this path? They're either asking psilocybin or amanita, or they don't take the stuff that's in a shitty bright colored package at the store. How do
Yeah.
you advise
Well,
people?
all right. Yeah. Well, that's a great question. I actually was just answering somebody today, so it's fresh in my mind. But yeah, as a baseline, do not buy your medicine at a smoke shop. Do not buy your medicine at a gas station. Do not buy your medicine at a head shop. All of these products are going to be garbage. There's a lot of gummies that are saying that they're Amanita, when they are actually filled with things like metrogenine from kratom, um, 4-ACO-DMT, which is synthetic psilocybin, and other kind of research chemicals and analog drugs that are really in the gray area of legality, but they don't label them as such. Like, I don't give a shit. If you want to take 4-ACO-DMT, like, be my guest, but like, fucking label it, right? Like, I've heard great people, great experiences with that. But if somebody doesn't know what Amanita is, and this is their first introduction to it, there have been hospitalizations.
Yeah.
There have been people failing drug tests because there was synthetic cannabinoids. And this is the problem that we live in the Western society is that we want freedom, right? We want like freedom to choose. Like, we're all about freedom, freedom, freedom. But then the free market actually chooses for people um,
Mhm.
because people buy it, right? Like they want the flashy packaging with the holographic freaking label of like the trippy looking mushroom thing. And they don't really look into what they're buying. And so it's like, okay, it's kind of on the consumer too, right? Like,
Mhm.
because we don't want to have the government regulate things for us because we can't freaking manage it ourselves, right? You just have to go with a company or a brand that you trust. You need to be able to ask them questions, and if they can't really answer you, then they're not the right company. And yeah, if it's in a gas station, just don't buy it. Like,
You think that would be
so
like explant like kind of enough just knowing that, but and people, our
I
kids
mean,
are being like raised on fucking vapes now. Like
yeah.
that's it's a thing. Like
Yeah, I know. I know. Back in my day, I had to smoke weed out of a pop can or an apple, right?
me
Behind a
too.
7-Eleven, right? And now these kids are like in study hall hitting their vape pens. Like they don't know how hard it was
Yeah.
brick weed out of a pop can. So, but like, I think there's an element of the packaging, just like the cigarette companies do, they cater it to children. They make it look like candy. They fill it
Mhm.
with food dyes and sugar, and other drugs. And it's a different demographic. Like the people I work with, they're more of a mature audience. They're probably in their mid 20s to late 80s. I work with some people that are 90 and they're trying to heal their neuropathy. And
Yeah.
I work with people of all ages, but mostly in their, older years. So the people that buy the stuff from the gas stations, they're really just looking for a legal high mostly. And the companies that sell that kind of stuff, they're just looking for the next legal high. So it's a different demographic. Um, it's more of like a flashy one-time purchase usually rather than like consistent loyal customers. Like I got 65% customer retention, which is incredible for a business. But like those companies are probably just doing a pump and dump scheme. So
Yeah.
yeah, I
Well,
could talk about all that for a while, but like
I
your
know.
original question was, Amanita or psilocybin. And I can get into that if you want.
Well, yeah, and I also want to get into um, so I'm a microdosing coach for kind of both, but it is very you need to know a person and what their goals are and what the symptoms that they have are symptoms of a root cause, and we're treating a root cause, so it has to be a holistic approach, right? Not just, oh, what do you have? Okay, this, have this, take it in 10 grams in the morning. It's not like that. We're not a pharmacy.
Right.
And I'm not getting paid by Harmony Acres or Michael Wilson, but I do want to like G up your products because like
Thanks.
but I wouldn't have asked you to speak to me and want to be a part of your masterclass if they weren't transcendent, like the respect and reverence that you come with to these teachers, to these medicines, that's apparent in the way that they get passed down. And you have to come with reverence if you want to really, oh, I get goosebumps. That's like the medicine. Like, yep, that's true.
Hmm.
And when I've had Pantherina of yours. We can get into that too, along with Muscaria, and they are kind of confronting. That's what medicine does. It's to get something up and out. and not just to give you a high or to make you have this connection to source, which they also are. But can you talk a little bit about, like, I guess bringing it back to psilocybin or Amanita, they're completely different, but also they work well together. And I had
Hmm.
a conversation with you once and just talking about the process. And you said, like a true alchemist, like, I tried microdosing Amanita with psilocybin and lion's mane, and it was like I could hear my brain growing, and I was like, I have to do this right now. And I did, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
how does your trial and error work? Or you're
Yeah.
intuitively listening to the medicines?
Yeah, well, I mean, I kind of was doing research one day and I realized that there's a lot of neuro benefits from all three of those mushrooms. And everybody's familiar with the Stamets protocol, Stamets stack of psilocybin and lion's mane and niacin. And the psilocybin has neuroplasticity benefits as well as neurogenesis, and lion's main thing is neurogenesis, increasing the brain-derived nootropic or new
Yeah,
nootropic
BDNF.
factor
Yeah, brain
BDNF.
neuro.
Yeah, BDNF, which is basically a measure of the neurons are growing. And then so like my theory was like, okay, well, but then the rat models that they studied lion's mane, um, they exposed them to oxidative stress afterwards, and all the neurons died back. So all the positive benefits from lion's mane can be nullified through environmental stressors like oxidative stress. Oxidative stress can occur from stresses in your environment, electrical radiation like EMFs or 5G, um, things in your food system that are going to have free radicals, like actual like stress, sleeplessness, rage, different things like, you know, watching too much news,
Mhm.
Um, so like living, right? Like living is full of stress. And so my whole thought was, and this is kind of I'm gonna like go off on a tangent here. So
Do it.
like Amanita increases neuroprotection. Neuroprotection is basically slowing the death of the oligodendrocyte cells. Try to say that fast. Oligodendrocyte cells are the cells that are around the axon, the myelin sheath. So the axon is the bridge that connects neurons, and the myelin sheath is like a little covering over the bridge. So it slows the death of those. So it increases neuroprotection. So it makes you more resilient to oxidative stress. And I think there's something interesting about how like it's like the doctrine of signatures. You look at this mushroom that it grows out of the ground, like you were talking about earlier. Something unique to Amanitas, not entirely, but like, is that they have a universal veil. And so a universal veil is different than other mushrooms that have like a veil on their gill or pore surface. The universal veil um, actually will cover the entire mushroom. And so it grows out of the ground, and you could actually mistake it for a puffball, which will attribute to a lot of the deaths occurred where people think that a puffball is, or Amanita phalloides, which is the death cap. They might think that that's a puffball, but whenever you cut it open, a puffball is just pure white inside. Whereas if it's an Amanita mushroom, you're gonna see a tiny mushroom inside of that like egg looking thing, right? So like I'm thinking about this like universal veil that's like protecting and covering the entire mushroom, and like the doctrine of signatures and how we have this like neuroprotective quality of Amanita where it's like protecting all of our neurons, and like it kind of insulates us in this way whenever we take Amanita to like be aware of our situation, but not be so bothered by it. And there's something about that that's like there's a healthy level of dissociation. Whenever you're like you're like just so immersed in your trauma, in your story, in whatever is plaguing you. Sometimes you need to get the fuck out. Sometimes you need to like, take a big wide scope and look at like from the outside in. And I think that kind of ties into your initial question about why would you take Amanita or psilocybin? Sometimes people need to really, really get out of their head and out of their body, and like be able to look at things from a third point of view, third perspective. Amanita is really good at that because it's classified as a delirium dissociative.
Well, it's
Um,
funny to me that people will like have all these awareness of, oh, it's so dangerous, it's listed as toxic, but like be downing a 10 beers like every week
right,
and
right.
like, no, I can't take that, it's poisonous. Like,
Yeah,
try it, do some
yeah.
research.
There's a couple reasons why somebody would take psilocybin versus Amanita. And somebody asked me this today, like, I'm depressed and I don't know if I need Amanita or psilocybin. And I was like, okay, that's a good question. Depression we used to say it's linked to low serotonin, but now we realize that depression is more complex than just serotonin levels.
Mhm.
Psilocybin would affect the serotonin. It's a serotonin agonist. And I would say, like, low serotonin levels would kind of be maybe attributed to like listlessness, kind of like apathy, malaise, maybe sluggishness. That could also be dopamine too. It's I don't want to be like too simplistic here.
Mhm.
Um, and and also like, you may want to take psilocybin if you really need to like confront like that thing that's bothering you or that's hanging you up in life. Like you need to like, you know, fucking deal with it. Like I feel like
Yeah.
psilocybin's really good for that. Um, and some people suffer from an overactive mind, and that would not be so beneficial. Like for me, I have a very hyperactive mind, and I think that Amanita is really my medicine because it helps me slow down, calm down, and like not be so much in my head. And if I'm not careful with like psilocybin microdosing, like it can kind of exacerbate that. And I
Mhm.
think that in general, like my serotonin levels are probably fine. So it's just really not the medicine for me.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, and like there's a lot of other reasons why somebody would go with Amanita versus psilocybin. It's like, I think if you really need more of like a gentle guidance, something that's going to kind of help you in the background over time. Like, you know, you could say that's true to microdosing in general because it's like that. It's a slower, lower dose, a
Mhm.
longer process than like a high dose. But I think Amanita in general is just more gentle than psilocybin. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. But I do find I was doing some personal experimentation also, and trying after you said that, like psilocybin with Amanita and with lion's mane, and I just felt like ready to go, like able to accomplish difficult tasks, but just to process more. And whether I was placeboing myself out, I told myself it was like the limitless drug, and I'm like, yeah, oh, systems
That's what it
fired.
felt like.
Like, and even if I was just making that up, who cares? It was doing it.
Yeah.
And from a neurochemical perspective, I felt that to be accurate. But Amanita, I was listening when I first, about 4 years, 3 years ago, I was first into Amanita, and I started, finding, before I found you, I found Amanita Dreamer, and just
Mm.
listening to her speak about how Amanita muscaria was the heart opening mushroom. And I really resonated with that. And the first time that I had Amanita, I had a house to myself. I was in kind of a cool swampy area in Florida and sitting on the backwater and meditating. And I had, what I thought was a 20, 30-minute meditation. It was 2.5 hours. I was crying and I was so full of happiness and love. And I was like, everybody needs to feel this way, getting goosebumps again. And I
Mm.
just as soon as I kind of had this extreme gratitude for Amanita, this voice in my like head, heart, all of me was just like, you want to jump on board? Like, I don't know how to say it. It wasn't words. It was like, do you want to come with us? And I was like, yes, absolutely, 100%. Everything in my body was like, yes. And it was like, okay, it nodded at me, like an Amanita in my mind's eye, like nodded at me and said, welcome to class. And from that day, I was like, oh, the goosebumps. I was like, I need to learn everything I can about this, from someone before that was like, what is a decarboxylation to like, okay, I want to figure this out. It feels like when I consume it, it's in me and wants to know itself. And
Yeah.
in order to serve other people. And that
Ooh.
is what the mushrooms do, right? And it's a beautiful thing. And when you recognize that in another mush lover, you're like, oh, let's talk about mushrooms. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, you gotta be careful. The mushrooms they'll like volunteer you to start doing stuff.
Yeah.
And then I love it. I love it. I actually like talk with my friends about it. It's like a joke because I meet awesome people like you or other people, and I'm just like, oh yeah, you work for the mushrooms too? Okay.
Yeah.
Like this whole you know, like Amanita has showed me in so many ways like what I'm capable of. And I didn't really feel like I could own that.
Mm.
Like I feel like I didn't want to take up room. I didn't want to like, I don't know, like do all these classes and educational things and presentations. Like I didn't have the courage. I didn't have the confidence to do it. And Amanita like slowly started to like sift through the things in my life. Like, okay, we got addictions, we got, dependencies, we got, you know, um, codependent relationship patterns. Okay, like let's work through all this stuff. All right, oh, we got a past life trauma, previous traumas. Okay, we're gonna work through all that. We're gonna like take all this stuff away and we're gonna not take it away, like ignore it. Like we're gonna go into it and deal with it and confront it
Mhm.
and bring gnosis to it, bring awareness to it. And then when we're done with that, you're gonna like do some awesome shit. And I was like, okay. And like, I feel like I'm just like this little kid, like holding on to like my grandma's hand, like, all right, like, where are we going now? And she's like, you come with me. Okay. You know, you do this talk here. Okay. Don't be afraid, and like every time I do a talk, not anymore, not so much anymore, but like something weird would happen in my life. Like, I was the first talk I ever did with Amanita, I was like on the verge of a divorce in my previous marriage. And and like and I knew it was over because she was like, I'm not going with you. And it was like my first talk ever. And I was like, wow, all right, I just got to do this on my own. And and like I sat with Amanita and she was like, you can do this. You can totally do this. Like you have more capability than you fucking realize. And I remember like just feeling like my heart was broken, but I was also like super open, like broken wide open, right? And I do this talk in front of like 50 people at a mushroom festival, and I'm like, it was fine. Like I barely slept the night before. It was like I was
Right.
tired from preparation, just like run through the ringer. And like I knocked it out of the park. Like everybody was like, that was a great talk. Like, thank you. And it was not just in my head, like it was reciprocated back. And so I always have my own little mini ceremony with Amanita before I do a class or a talk or an actual ceremony where I lead people through an Amanita ceremony. There's always something like, okay, like I have to put something on the altar first,
Mm.
and then we can do this because it's really all a personal journey. It's really all just like the beauty of all this is like I get to help people by helping myself. And I can't help people unless I help myself. And so the two of them are intertangled. And the cool thing about doing this masterclass, which we'll talk about, is like people are, I'm collaborating with a lot of other teachers, and a lot of them have said like, I've always wanted to do a presentation, but I never like had the courage to do it, or I never had the spoons to do it, or I never was organized enough to do it. And this, you inviting me to do this is actually giving me a reason to do it. And that was me years ago. And so I'm like, oh wow, like
Pay it
it's
forward.
starting to do the
Yeah.
ripples, it's happening.
Oh,
So
that's so
yeah,
cool.
I
And I
love
want to
mushrooms.
like listing the benefits of Amanita will really tie right into your master class because so many people they've heard of it now. Like it's on the, they're understanding like, oh, this mushroom from Alice in Wonderland, from Toadstool, from the Christmas story, which you still have to get into. But
Yeah.
can you just list for me or like let us know the benefits that Amanita muscaria can have for people? And then can you tie that into how you will share it in your masterclass? Like why would someone want to come to your masterclass? For me, I am like, I can't wait for it. So
Yeah.
why can we get incredible benefits from attending your masterclass?
Yeah, so well, the benefits of Amanita. So that would be if we're talking about mostly decarb or full decarb preparation.
Yeah.
My elevator pitch, I always get asked like at every mushroom festival, like, what are the benefits of Amanita? And then 5 minutes later, somebody asks me the same question, and I do that for 16 hours a day. So increased sleep, increased openness, um, decreased anxiety, decreased need for dependency, chemical and behavioral dependencies, um, and over time and with accompanied with meditation or mindfulness, you can begin to work through trauma, through your shadow self. It also decreases inflammation in the body. It also can help with pain topically. It can help with inflammation of the muscles, joint pain, arthritis, intense neuropathy. It can help with all these things. It also, as you know, we had mentioned earlier, increases neuro protection. And I think it also increases neurogenesis as well. I'm not positive on that, but I think it might. So those are kind of, and that's like kind of like the brief of it. I want to talk about the addictions though, really quick, because
Mhm.
something that's interesting is that like a lot of times whenever we are working with somebody that has addictions, like I do one-on-one consultations with people. I help people get off of pharmaceutical drugs that they don't want to be on. I help people get off of dependencies of other substances and behavioral addictions. And something that we see with Amanita is that somebody could be, let's say, addicted to opiates, or maybe they are addicted to nicotine, or maybe they're addicted to pornography or, gambling. Um, Amanita can help people get off of things that activate other receptor sites in the brain. They may not directly work on those addictions may not directly work on GABA, but by working with Amanita and activating the GABA system, I've found that people can get off of addictions of all sorts. And I think that there's something interesting about that because it means that like what they're using to self-soothe, which is oftentimes a coping mechanism based on past trauma, is that most people that are addicts are actually traumatized and they're coping. Is that something we find that's interesting is that by taking something else that works on a completely different receptor site, they're actually like they don't need that addiction anymore. And I think that what's happening is that Amanita just helps you feel better in general. Like I smoke tobacco, I grow it, it's organic, it's super good. I don't
Master
smoke
plan.
that often. What's that?
It's a master plan, so that's kind of
Yeah.
been vilified.
Yeah. Tobacco is incredible, but I used to smoke a lot when I was younger. But I find now with Amanita that I like forget to smoke or I like barely smoke. And normally it's just like in groups with people where it's like I want to share tobacco with people. Um and alcohol too, like I barely drink to begin with, but once I started working with Amanita, it was just like, yeah, I don't really want to drink alcohol. And something that, you know, is kind of a contraindication is alcohol is a GABA agonist as
Yeah.
well. So whenever people take Amanita and alcohol, they might feel a hangover from even just one drink.
Mm.
Um, and I also, one of the main um, base of my clients that I work with is people getting off of benzodiazepines,
Yes.
because benzodiazepines are GABA agonists. They have dependency concerns, and they also have lethal concerns. If you get off of benzos really quick, you can actually die. Same with alcohol. So there's a long, slow taper typically accompanied with that. And the Amanita can help, when you taper up with Amanita and down on benzos, it can help alleviate the symptoms of the benzodiazepine withdrawal, which can be really, really difficult.
Yeah.
That's just, something I like to highlight because it's like, you know, this opiate isn't affecting the GABA receptor, but taking Amanita has helped you get off of it. How does that work? Well, you just feel better whenever you take it. And maybe you don't need that opiate anymore. Maybe you can take this mushroom that has like little to no negative side effects and is not habit forming. So,
Another few benefits that were just so unexpected and just side benefits that I really didn't see coming was organizational abilities and desires. I wasn't a
hmm,
person that would organize so much, but after Amanita, I was like, our clothes were in like color coded and like folded, and then I refolded them to be like a store or something, like a shop front. And with things that normally you might put off or just fungus wants to be efficient in its growth and it wants to get the fastest possible way with the most organizing. And I found my
mhm.
brain to start doing that also. And that was really so wonderful because I didn't,
Yeah.
didn't think in that way as much. And now it's just like, oh, great. Why am I doing this? Oh, the mushrooms want to be efficient. And then I'm like grateful while I'm doing the dishes I
Yeah.
didn't like doing.
Yeah, that's a really good another benefit is that it can help with ADHD and
Mm.
ADD and lack of organization. And I think really what's going on with that is that like if you have ADHD, doing things that are complex can be overwhelming. But whenever you take Amanita, your mind is so calm that you can look at a whole complex thing and be like, well, okay, I'm just going to do one thing at a time because that's all I can do anyway. And you start to like, piddle your way through a multitude of tasks and you can focus on one thing at a time and complete it, rather than like, okay, I'm going to do this. And then you start thinking about that. And then you don't finish the first one. You start on the second one and then you're like, oh shit, I forgot about that thing from last week. And then suddenly you're just like, you have a bunch of half finished projects, right? With Amanita is just like, all we can do is one thing at a time. And so once you start doing one thing at a time, you actually complete them.
Yes. And we're
And I'm
so
telling myself
supported.
this. Yeah.
Yeah. We're so supported by these medicines. And one of the things people really don't realize is how long that these medicines have been interacting with humans, have been sharing their lessons with us. And I know we're getting pretty lengthy here, but I would love, especially as we approach this season, and the winter solstice is in less than a month now, and we're coming into Christmas. I would love if you could share just the whimsicalness of how Amanita muscaria ties into our modern day concept of Christmas. And also, if you wanted to share anything about Soma, like the elixir of the gods, and just how
Mm,
magical and mystical this mushroom has been throughout time and history for humans.
sure. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, the whole idea of Christmas is funny. If you look at the history, it's kind of this never-ending story. And you don't really get to a conclusion, but we can draw some parallels from Amanita muscaria and Christmas. So, let's paint a picture. We're gonna go to Siberia, or no, we're gonna go to Lapland. Okay, so we're gonna go to it's modern day Finland. So it's like the closest continent to the North Pole before you get up to the North Pole. And we have this indigenous community called the Sami, and they were reindeer herders or reindeer followers, as they would say. They follow the reindeer, and um, they the reindeer love to eat Amanita muscaria. Okay, so that's one theory is like, okay, Rudolph's red nose, right? He was eating a red mushroom. I don't know. There's also another theory that like the red nose was associated with some kind of bacterial infection or something, So like there's like a couple things with that, right? But if you look at the Sami cultures, they actually worked with Amanita muscaria as a religious sacrament. Um, when do the Amanitas get picked? Well, for the first couple months before the winter solstice. When is the winter solstice? That's 4 days before Christmas, right? And so these Sami people would have a shaman that would come through their village, and they would have a sack of amanitas, and the front doors of the houses would be snowed in, so they had to go through the smoke hole. It wasn't a chimney, it wasn't like a narrow chimney, it was a giant hole. And they would come in through there, and people would um, have kind of like prayer requests, or they would have a concern or need, and this shaman would either give them amanitas, or they would take amanitas and like go to the the um the astral plane and bring back wisdom, or take them on a journey and bring back wisdom for them. So we have this, shaman character that would go around from house to house offering gifts, right? But they weren't just, presents. They were, maybe red and white amanitas. What all, and also too, like the motif of the Christmas tree. We have this pine tree with little red and white gifts all around the base. Well, Amanita muscaria is associated with it grows
Pine
symbiotically
nuts.
with,
Yeah.
yeah, with the pine trees. So, and then also too, like a lot of traditions will hang the mushrooms from the branches, like the ornaments. There's a couple theories on this. One theory is to spread the spores. Having them hung on the trees like gets them higher up, and the spores can travel. Another theory is that they dehydrate them that way. So letting the air kind of naturally passively dry them. Yeah, and then like look at Santa Claus himself, like red and white gown, like the guy looks like an Amanita mushroom. So yeah, there's strong parallels with Santa Claus and Christmas in general. And that's why I really love like the winter solstice. It feels like just the right time of year to gather. It's like the darkest time of the year too, which is something that is interesting because the veil between this world and the next world is very thin,
Mm.
right? And like, what does Amanita do? Like, helps us get into our own shadows, into the depths of ourself. And so there's this kind of parallel again with that. So yeah, that's like the long and short of it.
Yeah, no, I just love that. And I love how when you first are learning it, you're like, oh my God, this is where Christmas came from. And even to the facts of like how close the times are and how, pagan rituals and things have just been shifted enough for us to make it a consumeristic, like lots of chocolate and na 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 na. But no, I
Right.
love that. And the other thing is just that I found so magical when I was doing a yoga teacher training actually years ago in India was like Soma, just learning about in the Rig Vedas, they were talking about, and psychedelics have been closely linked to yoga for as long as they both existed. So to
Right.
learn that Soma might have very well contained the Amanita muscaria, even though the recipe's been lost through time, it seems probable.
Yeah, and it's like, I like the theory. Gordon Wasson proposed this theory.
Yeah.
His book, Soma, the theory of, or the I forget the name of it, but I think it's just Soma. But in the master class, Kevin Feeney does a whole presentation about it. And if you
Oh,
want to read the Fly Garrett Compendium, it also has some information about Soma. So Soma is this, um, it's really this unknown thing, right? Like we don't really know what it is. It's either a alien technology, a gift from the gods, a mushroom or plant brew or something like that. And the Gordon Wasson proposed that it was Amanita muscaria, and his whole reasoning for this was that there was three filters that they talk about. The first filter would be the sun. Okay, so um, you can think of these filters as basically decarboxylation methods. So the first method is the sun. So the sun dehydrates the the raw mushroom and it starts to decarboxylate it. Um, and then the second filter was a piece of wool. And the reason for this was, after you make your Amanita brew, then you would filter it through the wool and then you would remove the mushroom particulates. And then the third filter is the human body, which talks about like basically drinking the Amanita tea
yeah.
and then you recycle your urine. Um,
Said
so,
so nicely.
oh,
Recycle
and
your
that actually is something too that there's some theories about that with the Santa
reindeer.
Claus thing
Yeah.
was that the reindeer really love to eat amanitas and they would like knock people over to like get the
Yeah.
amanitas and then people realized somehow that they either could like drink the reindeer pee or the shaman's pee. There's definitely some pee drinking. I don't know if it's the Sami or if that's like a different, kind of motif from a different story,
Yeah.
but I can personally attest to I have drank my own urine after consuming Amanita, and it definitely will reactivate the effects.
Oh,
It also works for psilocybin too, but um,
okay.
there's a diminishing return though. It doesn't. Yeah, it's not like it's definitely there's some loss in every step. But yeah, that was the third filter with Soma,
Interesting.
was the human body. And so this is a theory, but personally, it's like there's a lot of people that believe that Jesus Christ was an amanita mushroom, and
Yeah.
I don't believe that either. Like I've looked into all the evidence and like what people, I even have a book from somebody sent me a whole book about this, and I don't believe it. I'm a mushroom person. I want Jesus to be a mushroom, but I don't have the compelling evidence. I'm a
Yeah.
very skeptical person first before I believe something, especially like a claim like that. But
I think
and
he may
then,
have consumed them.
what's that?
I think he may have consumed Amanita in this soma, especially while
Probably.
he's been missing years. I think.
Yeah. I mean, especially, I mean, if he went to India and became a rishi, like studied with the yogis and learned all the siddhis, like, yeah, he probably did.
Mhm.
Um, And then, yeah, and like a lot of the religious iconography people talk about with, Jesus and Amanita, a lot of that stuff is from the medieval time period.
Yeah.
So it's not like from like way back in the day. And there was a lot of overlap and influences with Amanita being a sacrament with pagans um, during that medieval period. So I think there was some of that religious iconography that kind of got muddled and mixed in. I don't really think that that is like evidence that Jesus was an amanita mushroom or was consuming it. I don't, it's mostly medieval art. It's not like
Yeah.
pre-medieval. So,
Yeah. I've seen some
yeah.
images kind of discrediting that this isn't a mushroom. That's how they drew this at the time and blah, blah, blah. But
Yeah. Yeah. Or like the robes, the colors, like red and white, but um Yeah, I want it to be true. I just haven't seen any compelling evidence. So
Same.
I think that it was more or less like a very sacred sacrament that was used indigenously across the world. I mean, this mushroom grows everywhere, on every continent. There is even evidence that Native Americans used it. So, you know, I think that people work with the medicines around them. And unfortunately, due to colonialism, a lot of the folklore knowledge has been eradicated. But I think that way more people were using Amanita than we realize.
Yeah. Oh man, and I really like, since you said Kevin Feeney too, I want to just touch on, if you can share some of the masters in your master class, how long it runs for, what people can expect, the costs and stuff associated. But just before we do that, I'd love to know if you have had any experiences with elders in the master in Amanita Muscaria journeys, because a few people that I've listened to, like Amanita Dreamer, some others that have just shared like smoking Amanita. It's kind of wasteful, I think, with the fat solubility, but have definitely communed with elders with Amanita. Has that experience come to you?
So I have seen um I've seen some things.
It's a good answer.
Um
Good answer.
yeah, like it's I'm trying to so like I've communed with Amanita. I've seen her like as this woman wearing like a white frilly dress and like dancing around the fire and like
Mm.
playfully destroying my ego in very high dose experiences.
Wow.
Um and in that same experience later on, um I witnessed something that I don't fully understand, which was um, the birth and destruction of billions of universes, and that every universe or every iteration of life had one soul that was the creator. And like it was like this rotisserie of like, okay, whose turn is it to make everything? And it
Mm.
was really weird because and I'm like hesitant to say it. Um, I witnessed that all these creators made life for the pleasure of watching their creation suffer, and it made me really mad. It made me really angry for life. Um, and I don't know if that's like what I was seeing was like the false matrix, right? Like this demiurge kind of, you know, thing if you're familiar with Gnosticism. But then it was my opportunity. I was like the next avatar to make the universe. And so I was like, well, I'm gonna make it with love. And so I chanted out Om Namah Shivaya and I like made this whole other universe and then became a avatar inside of that universe. And you know, it's like I don't know. I feel like whenever I connected on that level, it was like I connected with myself, I connected with my father, and I connected with like the divine masculine and
Mm.
Shiva, right? Um, and it was like not even a personal elder. It was like the energy of the divine masculine inside of me.
Mm. Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if if you follow channelers at all, but Bashar,
Yeah. Yeah.
he says that we're shifting billions of times per second. And when you said that you witnessed the death of billions of universes at once, I was just talking the other day about like, so if we're existing in billions, we're not moving from this moment to the next. We're just existing in billions of frames per second, and each of those could go each other way. And you know, when you're in a big psychedelic trip, you can feel all of those, whichever way you focus, you exist. So I'm wondering, like, there's has to be infinite realities upon infinite realities upon infinite realities and billions of universes. Is that just a drop in a pond? Is that all of, like, are we just one little sand on some
Yeah.
other entire, oh my God.
That's what I saw. It was weird. I mean, it was like literally looking at like a flip book where it's like prrrr, like
Yeah.
that. Like I watched like it was like birth, life, and death of an entire multi-billion year universe, like happening rapidly, like boom, 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 boom. It was painful to see it. Like it was just like because I was like feeling all the growth and the sadness of like life and death, like billions of life forms like coming and going. And um, and then like whenever I became the avatar to create my own universe, I saw the web. I saw the web of life. I saw everything. I saw every little strand, every little node, every little choice
Wow.
point. And in life, sometimes, you feel like you're at the end of the road, but you're actually just closing doors from old timelines and you're about to go into a new timeline. And sometimes whenever you choose one timeline, you close off all the other possibilities, but maybe that was the right one, or maybe it wasn't. But you will never know until you actually make that choice. And you have to make the choice because that's what we're here to do. And really, there's no wrong decision because if we are life experiencing itself, we're only here to learn. And so everything is a learning example. And so you just got to do it. Just got to go. And
Yes.
if you go with your heart and what feels right to you, I don't believe you can make a wrong choice. And that goes back to intuition and remembering that.
Well said, dude. And I really think that if you lose, you're learning. So there's winning or learning, which is winning. So you're just always winning. Reframing that perspective is something that mushrooms, fungus, or just existence, not just having them in my body, but just observing them has helped me to come to terms with as a human, trying to human, you know?
Yeah.
And it's so important for us to remember that when we're like doom scrolling and all the other shit that gets put in front of us to bring us or take us out of our present moment of just your of all of the things that exist. You are this one, the only single one that exists.
Yeah.
You're divinely unique. Oh, I love
Yes.
that. Um,
Absolutely.
can you share with us how people can get into this masterclass, what it's all about, and also how they can find you and work with you? Because if I'm listening to this, I'm like, how do I work with Michael Wilson? How do I get his knowledge
Yeah.
into my brain?
Yeah. Well, so you can send me an email or find my website is harmonyacres.love. That has my contact information there. Sure Shannon will have my contact info in the description. Um, so I made the master class. Well, it's a work in progress. I call it a living library. And I just get to be the steward of it. But really what I'm doing is I'm collaborating with a bunch of really awesome people. So I know some things about Amanita. I've been working with Amanita since 2021, pretty pretty religiously. I have never focused so much on one thing before in my life. And whenever I really get into something, I like drill in. And this mushroom has captivated me. So I've done multiple presentations. I've done teaching modalities. I've done multiple consultations and ceremonies. I've also experimented personally with this mushroom in almost every possible way. And so like there's a lot of information on the internet about Amanita. Some of it's right, some of it's wrong. And some of it is a lot of it's written and it's p people like to watch videos. So my whole thought was like I just want to make video content that's easier to digest for people. And I also want to create a community around it. So the masterclass is a lot of different things. For one, it's a lot of interviews with people who work with Amanita professionally, so practitioners that help people with microdosing, practitioners that help people with ceremony, small dose or large dose. It's also going to include people who have recovered from benzodiazepines, working with Amanita, um, and maybe people who are in the process of it, because the taper does take, anywhere from, 2 months to 3 years. Um, and then some journey reports, so kind of like trip reports. I'll have some stories in there too. Um, yeah, and then we're gonna have some lectures from teachers. I'll have some lectures in there as well. So we have Kevin Feeney, who is the author of the Fly Garrett Compendium. We have my friend Dr. Lance, who's a functional medicine doctor who leads ceremonies with people. We also have a lot of other people like Valentine Falcon, Kenneth LeCashman, Victory Longquist, who's a Sami person. She is actually she's a chaplain, a firefighter, a ceremony leader. She's a badass woman, and she gave a great lecture. And this is just the beginning too. Like this is just the first year. I've been building this with people for a year, and we're finally launching it 12/12 of 2025. So in a little under a month, it's going to be released. And we also have a vendors list. So these are approved vendors that we trust, and you can access Amanita products or services through that vendors list. We have a general chat. We have a vendors discussion. If you want to talk about the vendors, you know, if you have a good experience, negative experience, like, full transparency is what we're all about. Um, the so it's through Patreon, and it's integrated also into Discord. So we have a Discord chat. It is also affiliated with the Facebook groups and the Reddit group, but just kind of, we're just using that to promote it. And yeah, and then the one of the greatest things that I'm really excited about with the master class is that once a month we're going to have a Zoom meeting where anybody can join who's a member of the master class. And it's going to be like integration, ask me anything. Oh, speaking of which, there's just so much. All right. So my friend Kristen Taylor and also Valentine Falcon, they have provided so Valentine has this imaginal dreams of Amanita journey. So it's kind of like a shamanic journey with a drum, and there's some prompts, and then there's like a journal afterwards. And Kristen's a microdose coach. She works with a variety of different microdoses. So she actually is providing a 3-month microdose journal too. So not only do we have like educational things, we also have like hands-on, like how to work with Amanita and like tracking your progress. And then if, to tie in, to have the community as a container is like super important, I believe. So that Zoom class that's going to be once a month, that's going to be your chance to really like connect with people virtually and like, you can ask me if any of the practitioners are on the Zoom, they can talk too. But then, if you need support, like we also have the chat on the Patreon and on the Discord as well. And we were moving things like away from Meta, Facebook and Instagram have like a lot of issues with censorship. So Patreon and Discord are definitely like safer places for that kind of discussions. Yeah, and then I'm also going to be doing my own shamanic journey that people can listen to and be guided by. So, we have I really just I want to have preparation videos too. And so I'm making this first launch on 12/12. We're going to have a lot of really cool stuff. And then every month, there's like there's like the free level where you can just view general videos and the vendors list. And then there's like if you just want to like support us, you can donate $5 a month. I think it's called the spore spreader. The fungal forager is like access to the whole master class and the Zoom. And then the shamanita is like the highest level. That's like you get to vote on like what content gets put out the next month. So that's definitely like the coolest levels because you can actually kind of steer the ship of like, what do you want me to research? What do you want me to look into? Who do you want me to interview? And you can vote on that. So, but yeah, if you're a fungal forager, you get access to the full masterclass and the Zoom once a month, and then the Shamanita, you get all of that. Plus, you get a private chat server and some one-on-one time with me, and then the access to voting about what content we create. So it's a living library. I'm going to continue to build it over time, and it's just really, one place to put like all of the knowledge and wisdom that I have around Amanita, but more importantly, like the collaboration of all of the amazing people that I know that work with Amanita too.
You work with a lot of experts, and this vibe of people find each other. This is a tribe. It's pretty awesome. And if people want to get their hot little hands on the medicine and start to really commune with these teachers, these intelligent, beyond understanding intelligent teachers, you can find the tinctures that Michael has made in his alchemical wizard house. Um, Proper laboratory, I should say. And that's all online. And you put the description of how it's made and everything online. So it makes it really
Yeah.
easy for people to choose, but they can reach out if they've got questions.
Totally, yeah. Yeah, you can email me info at harmonyacreslove dot or harmonyacres.love. I just combined everything under a new domain, harmonyacres.love. And yeah, so just find me there. That's where I have everything. I'm putting all of my products and knowledge and everything into that website. And yeah, really excited about, just building that out and building out the Patreon and, just bringing more awareness and more people to Amanita and other mushrooms.
That is fabulous. And just kind of on that note and kind of closing, um, I would love if you could share what Amanita means to you or in what capacity it speaks to you, or if you have a message via Amanita through you, what
Hmm.
might that be for our listeners?
Yeah. Um, I just like kind of tapped in for a second there,
Yeah.
and the word that comes to mind is integration,
Mm.
and integrity. So I think that a main illness of our society today is that we are disconnected. We're disconnected from ourselves. We're disconnected from our food sources. We're disconnected from our water. We're disconnected from our families and our connection to Creator. Um, and I feel like Amanita kind of helps me, and I've seen her help other people reintegrate back in with themselves, back in with the things that are really important, and the things that make us a human, rather than just a machine or something, like it's not just about like, go to store, input food, or like input digital currency, output happiness. Like these things are meaningless without a connection to them. And so I feel like whenever we can really tap into ourselves and our own innate potential to heal, um, that it actually um, it improves every aspect of our life. And I've seen that in myself too. So, I work with Amanita, but I'm a spiritual, if I can do it myself first, I want to do that because even plants and mushrooms, like I don't want to rely on things externally. But I think that these amazing allies that we have in the natural world around us are here for us to help us connect to ourselves. So integration.
Well said. And thank you. I really want to thank you. Your wisdom is more than your young years, you know? So I think that the mushrooms find you in lifetimes. And maybe as you are the avatar, the advocate, the ally to share these with people to help them wake up. And really appreciate your expertise. And I really think that coaches, people that are not just kind of people that are starting, and as well as experts in these fields could get a lot from your masterclass and just the connecting with the community because something that you may think you know, you can hear someone else say it in a way that just completely shifts your perspective and evolves you and makes you a
Mhm.
better teacher, coach, human to be able to pay that forward. So I'm excited for all things Amanita and Harmony Acres, all the love. So thank you,
Thank you.
Michael Wilson. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Shannon. It was a pleasure talking with you, and I'd love to do it again soon.
We will, dude, for sure.